Day kids. My name is Zuri and I'm giving announcements for today.
Announcements!
Last week we heard about baby Moses. This week we will keep looking for the rescuer. Before we sing more psalms and hear more about God's family, let's celebrate the people who had birthdays this week. If you had a birthday this week, we want to say this blessing over you. God made you.
God made you.
God knows you.
God knows you.
God loves you.
God loves you.
Over the summer, Imago Kids is supporting our global team in Nepal. Say this blessing with me over Nepal. God made Nepal.
God made Nepal.
God knows Nepal.
God knows Nepal.
God loves Nepal.
God loves Nepal.
Hey, what's up, Imago Dei kids? This is Mr. Seth. I am here in the super secret hideout of my house. It's one of the only places that my kids are not allowed to go. Maybe your grown-ups and your family have a spot like that where you can't go either. But for me, it's one of the only places where I can get away to be able to tell a story. And I wanted to be able to tell you guys a story today that is a really important story, and the story of God and his people. It's a story of a rescuer. Now, a lot of times when I read the Old Testament, that's the first part of the Bible. It's a really big chunk that tells these stories from thousands and thousands of years ago. When I read the Old Testament, I often think about the rescuer being Adam and Eve sometimes. I think about the rescuer being people like Jacob, people like Joseph, people like Abraham and Isaac. I think about those people and I think about how they helped rescue parts of God's people from something terrible that was going to happen. And one of the things I keep learning every time I read the Old Testament is that even though those people played a part in God's rescue plan, they are not the rescuer. God is bringing us closer and closer and closer to the real rescuer in every story that he tells. And in every story that he tells, it points us to who Jesus is and the ways that Jesus will rescue us perfectly one day. But for now, in this Old Testament time, this first chunk of the Bible, thousands and thousands of years ago, we hear about people who remind us of what rescuing looks like and what it means to be rescued by the God of all creation. So last week, we heard the first part of the story of Moses. We heard about how the Pharaoh at the time was trying to kill all of the Hebrew baby boys, and that included this little baby named Moses. And because God is so good and brilliant and wonderful, he took care of Moses, and his mom put him in this basket. He floated down a river, and then he was found by the Pharaoh's daughter and even got to be raised by his own first mom before he went to live with the Pharaoh. And he was super wealthy, had all the power and all the privilege. And it was something that no one else in his first family and the first peoples that he was a part of had ever experienced. One day Moses saw his new people killing his old people, and he got really, really angry. He got so angry that he killed somebody about it. And when he realized what he did and that he killed somebody about it, he ran away. He ran far, far, far away, all the way into the desert. And for years and years and years, he stayed there. He met a new family there. He got married. He had kids. He hung out. He took care of smelly sheep. He was living a nice, quiet life until one day, all of a sudden, in the middle of nowhere, he walks by this bush. And this bush is on fire. It's on fire, and it just keeps burning and burning and burning and burning and burning without blowing up. And Moses is like, this is not normal. It is not normal for a bush to catch on fire, but to not burn up. What is going on? And so he gets closer and closer and closer and closer to the bush. And all of a sudden, he hears a loud voice. And this loud voice says, Moses, Take off your shoes. You are standing on holy ground. And Moses is like, what did I just hear? And he hears this loud voice tell him the same thing. And Moses takes off his shoes and he gets on his knees. And he realizes that this is not just any burning bush. This bush has something supernatural going on, something that cannot be explained by science or reason or story. This is something beyond this world that is happening right now. And this bush, Moses realizes, is the voice of God. And God has a very special, important message for Moses in this moment. In the middle of the desert, when Moses has run away from everything that he had ever known growing up. And this bush, with the voice of God, says, Moses, it's time to go home. And Moses is like, I'm not going home. Yeah, everyone knows what I did. And God says to Moses through this bush, he says, everyone who knew what you did is dead now. You're safe. And I have a bigger mission for you now. This mission is that through your obedience to me, we're going to set all of my people free. And Moses is like, nope, not going to do that. I'm not interested. I don't like talking in front of people. I don't like scary things. I'm kind of done seeing my old families. I don't want to go back there. I'm done. And God says, every excuse you give to me to not be obedient, I'm going to give you a reason to listen. I'm going to give you someone else to talk. I'm going to give you miracles that you can show. I'm going to make terrible things happen to the oppressors, the people who are hurting the Hebrews, the Jews, my people. And you're going to have no reason to be afraid of anything. And so Moses says, okay. He loads up his family on some camels and donkeys, and they head back into Egypt. Back to where all of God's people are slaves. Back to where the Pharaoh has all of the power. And Moses and his brother Aaron, they go to the Pharaoh and they say, Pharaoh, the Lord God Almighty, the one who is called I am, because he was before time and after time and in time and holds all the power. The one who is called I am, the one who is called Yahweh. That God says, it is time to let my people go. He says, let my people go. Say it with me. Let my people go. And Pharaoh says, not going to do it. Not interested. And God knew that Pharaoh would do this. And like we said, he had a plan. And so each time Pharaoh said, nope, not going to do it, God made something really terrible happen to the Egyptians. Sometimes it was frogs everywhere. Sometimes it was locusts, these giant flying bugs that would come and they would eat up all of the food and the crops. Sometimes it was boils that would grow on the animals and make them sick and die. Sometimes the entire river would turn to blood. There would be flies, gnats all over, so much so that you couldn't see. And then the last thing, this was the kicker for Pharaoh, was the Passover. God told his people, the Hebrews, the Jews, one night that they needed to take a sacrificial lamb and they needed to take the blood from that lamb and paint it on the door of their house. And God said, if you do this, you will be safe. And since God's people were listening to him, they chose to do that and be obedient to God's commands. The Egyptians did not listen. And so when God sent his angel through Egypt this one last night, he did not stop over the homes of the Jews, of God's people. It did stop over the homes of the Egyptians. And the ones who did not have blood on the doorposts of their home that night lost somebody in their family that they really loved. Somebody died. I'm not sure why God chose to make a point like that. And I wish that death never had to happen. But in this story, God uses this death to finally break Pharaoh's heart and get his people out of Egypt and out of being slaves. The next day, all of God's people ran. They took everything they could and they ran as fast as they could, being led by Moses and his brother Aaron and his sister Miriam. And they ran and they ran and they ran until they got to huge waters, a sea in front of them, where they thought, we will never be able to pass. We left Egypt. We thought we were finally free after all of these years of terrible things happening. And now we are stuck and we have nowhere to go. And Pharaoh's army could be coming after us. And Moses said, God told me that there is no reason to be afraid. That every time I was afraid of something, he would give me a reason to get rid of my excuses. And so let's see what God does. Moses picked up his staff and he set it in the sand. And all of a sudden, the Bible tells us a story of the waters parting into two spaces and leaving dry land in between for all of God's people to get across and make it to safety. Moses had all the reasons not to trust God. And God gave Moses all the reasons to believe that he is the one true rescuer. That even when things are scary, even when things don't make any sense at all, even when terrible things keep happening over and over again, our God is the God who rescues. And we don't always know how it's going to work. We don't always know when it's going to come. But friends, no matter what age you are, I want to tell you that I believe that God is still rescuing you, and he's still rescuing me, and he's still going to rescue our friends and our families and our communities. And it is so hard to believe it sometimes, but I'm in this with you. Even when it's hard this year, we are going to trust that God will keep rescuing us. So let's do this together. Virtual high five. Love you guys. We'll see you later. Bye.